Welcome to Fearless with Jason Whitlock. I am Jason Whitlock, your host. Happy Friday. We made it. It's the weekend. It's going to be awesome. Today's show is going to be awesome. Delano Squires, Steve Kim here with us. And listen, I was given a layup. I was given a layup. I mean, you wonder why I got this big smile on my face. It's because Colin Kaepernick opened his mouth again. How easy could this show be for me? It's like they put it on a tee for me. I don't have to do any work. It's a topic custom made for me. I've been a long time Colin Kaepernick critic, and he is exposing himself as one of the worst human beings in the history of America. And I say that in all seriousness. He's not beyond redemption. But this is a tragic, sad, confused, mean-spirited human being. This is no hero. This is no one that's interested in social justice. This is an idiot who is mean-spirited, ungrateful, and a blight on the sports world. And anybody that defended this guy should be embarrassed. Surely you've heard by now that Colin Kaepernick took a dump on his adoptive parents. I can't think of anything lower that his pursuit of fame and money would take him to this depth, to be this low, to call your parents problematic and insinuate and flat out claim that they raised you in a racist manner. Let's play the clip of Colin Kaepernick being interviewed by, it looked to me like another Half-frican American, but I'm not 1,000% sure. But he's got some comic book out about his life, and he sat down with a female reporter with another female that helped him write this, sitting next to him. Got that feminine energy just flowing everywhere. Let's listen to Colin Kaepernick take a dump on the parents, the Kaepernick parents that raised him.
It's his true high school coming-of-age story, his journey embracing his blackness, despite resistance from many, including his white adoptive parents.
I know my parents loved me, but there were still very problematic things that I went through. I think it was important to show that, no, this can happen in your own home, and how we move forward collectively while addressing the racism that is being perpetuated.
He took cues from his icon, basketball star Allen Iverson, who he said wore his blackness like a suit of armor. And teenage Kaepernick wanted cornrows to match. He's getting what roles, his mom asked?
Oh, your hair's not professional. Oh, you look like a little thug.
Your mom said that to you.
Yeah. And those become spaces where it's like, okay, how do I navigate this situation now? But it also is informed why I have my hair long today. Part of the goal in telling the story is, no, take pride in your blackness, take pride in your culture. My hope is young people and readers walk away and they seize their power. When y'all are in that position, you have the opportunity to change things.
He's going to take me to a level of transparency today that could get me in trouble, could trigger someone watching, could paint a bad image of me, but I just need people to hear me out in context and just be patient with me, or show me some grace and mercy if I say something that doesn't quite land right. But anybody that knows me knows I have no problem with interracial dating. Anybody that knows me knows I was very capable of being 50% of a Half-frican American child. But when I look at Colin Kaepernick and what's going on with these Half-frican Americans, including Barack Obama, all the way down, I thank God that it didn't happen, because I would be devastated if my kids were having the kind of identity issues that I consistently see from African American kids. And if anybody's watching this who is married in an interracial marriage or whatever, I am not attacking you at all. I wish the best for your kids. I hope that you have equipped them to see themselves beyond their skin color, see themselves as image bearers of God. But this would have been my worst nightmare if I had a kid and I hadn't raised them properly so that they wouldn't spin off into this racial idolatry world that Kaepernick and so many African American kids seem to be caught up in. Kaepernick and this reporter, who appears to be African American to me as well, talking about embracing his blackness. What other group does this? Is there another group that sits on television talking about, I had to embrace my brownness, I had to embrace my yellowness, I had to embrace my whiteness? If white people were on TV talking about, I had to embrace my whiteness, they would be run off and called every racist in the book. They would be called problematic themselves. And then if you're so stupid as to think cornrows makes you black, whatever black is, other than a skin color. The only thing that can make you black is the color of your skin. That's the only qualification. For Colin Kaepernick to have so little self-awareness, life experience, lack of a broader understanding. I had 2 black parents, and my father questioned everything about me. I don't like the clothes you're wearing. Why'd you get an earring? Why are you doing this or that? If I had gotten cornrows, my father probably would have smacked me on sight and would have been like, what are you doing? You think you went to college to come out and dress like some thug straight out of prison? That's what parents do. They don't want you all dressed up looking like you just got out of Rahway State Prison. Black parents, white parents, responsible parents, regardless of color, ask those types of questions and question everything about their kids. I guarantee you, if they had a white kid and they came home looking like a hippie with long hair, you look like a hippie and a fool. That doesn't look professional. That's what parents do. But Kaepernick is so foolish and stupid, he thinks that tats and cornrows and Allen Iverson wrote the book on being black. To some degree, I have sympathy for Colin Kaepernick, but not this. Not this. When your black daddy that you never knew, allegedly black daddy, that you never knew, you look Middle Eastern to me, your white mama, they gave you up. And these 2 people come rescue you, put you in a good home, bend over backwards to support your athletic career, your academic career and everything. And you want to sit down and do interviews and talk about problematic and racism? You have so little understanding of parenting. You think I couldn't sit here and talk about the mistakes my parents made? Every parent makes mistakes. And I'm not even saying your parents made mistakes, but every parent makes mistakes. But most people, particularly in their 30s, hell, by the time they're teenagers, they're wise enough to go, oh, Lord, have mercy. Was my parents good to me? Yeah, they didn't do everything right, but oh my God, what a blessing. Jimmy Joe next door don't even know his daddy. Felicia down the street, her mama strung out on drugs. And my parents bent over backwards for me and supported me in every way fashionable. My father made some mistakes, but my God, the sacrifices he made, the sacrifices my mother made, and I'm gonna sit up and question and clown them to sell some comic books and to be popular? This man is sick. And anybody that can't see it is sick too. This is the lack of gratitude. It's so pervasive. And yes, I'm going to go all the way here. These young people that have no gratitude for being Americans and for being born here and appreciate the people, white and black, who sacrificed so that we could live in the land of the free, the home of the brave, the land with all this opportunity. There's no gratitude for it. And all everybody wants to do is second guess and publicly question everything and act like they are the supreme beings with all the answers. And if we had been the founding fathers, if we had been this or that, oh, how much better this country would be. It's a joke. You have no gratitude. And it's because you have no connection to God. Because when you have a connection to God, you're overwhelmed with gratitude. You know how flawed you are. And so you don't go on TV and take a dump on mama and daddy. Now, look, if mama and daddy had truly mistreated you, if they didn't feed you because they blew money on gambling and booze and whores and drugs, I get it. But your complaint is, your mama complained because you had cornrows? Me and my daddy would have gotten a knockdown, drag-out fight if I tried to put some cornrows on my head. We would have got in a fight. Trust me. He would have thrown hands at me. That's what parents do that care about their kids. This story is sickening. I've never liked Colin Kaepernick. Let me be accurate. When he was just a football player, I did like Colin Kaepernick. I actually loved him. He was my favorite player. But once he started this kneeling stuff and couldn't defend it, and once he exposed himself as mute Muhammad Ali, controlled by that woman of his, I've never liked Colin Kaepernick. And I feel so justified in not liking him right now. Any of you that had good parents and trust me, your parents made mistakes, but getting on TV and chit-chatting with some woman you don't know about the mistakes that you think they made, and they're racist and this was problematic, and you making a cartoon book about it? You're that thirsty? You're that unappreciative? You're sick, man. Absolutely sick. And all the people gassing you up, they're sick. Now, I'm not a parent, and that's why first person we're going to bring in is Delano, because he is a parent. And he was raised by good parents. Delano, this is the bridge too far for me with Colin. There's been many things, but I just can't believe this guy would do this to these people. I know they're adopted parents, but they complained about cornrows. And in the movie he put out, I think one of them complained about the round the way girl he was trying to take to some dance or whatever. I don't know if I've ever dated anybody my parents didn't second guess and didn't have a complaint about. That's what parents do.
Right.
I just, this seems crazy to me. It's sickening to me. I can't stand Colin Kaepernick. I just can't. Your thoughts?
Jason, I'm right there with you. I think his behavior is contemptible. I think it's despicable. I think it reveals a lack of character. But unfortunately, it's right on brand because this is what Marxists do, right? They think that a person's ultimate loyalty should be to the ideology and to the state and I guess to one's comrades. And that's why they attack religion. They attack the family. They try to cut people away from the family. They say, oh, the family's not loyal to Big Brother, to the state. So you should pull back from them, right? They don't support you. They're not good comrades. They're not good allies. So you should pull back from them. And I think what he's doing, and I said this on Twitter, it is disgusting. And I hope, because now Colin Kaepernick is a father. And I pray that his children extend more grace to him than he extends to his parents. Because as I said, what he is doing is completely despicable. And as a Christian, I understand that one of the 10 commandments is to honor your mother and your father so that your days will be long in the land. And the Marxist worldview is one which will shorten your days. Because even if you live a long time, your life will never be full. Because when you have these sort of purity tests, you're going to run off everybody that's ever cared about you. Your mom, your dad, your siblings, your extended family, and you're going to be surrounded by comrades. But as you said, I think yesterday, on the show, to some of those comrades, you're just a useful idiot. So once you fulfill your purpose in their agenda, you're gone. And we saw this with BLM, and honestly, the particularly Patrisse Cullors and Alicia Garza, they both got family issues. Alicia Garza complained that her stepdad, a man that she described as a white Jewish man, showed her what it's like to deal with sort of patriarchy and power, because he ran a business and he would tell her, go bring me some coffee. That was her complaint. That her dad, who provided for her and her black mom, told, I want you to bring me coffee. Now she said, he cared for me, but that's why I had to learn to, I wanted to exert my own power as a black woman. And I said, we are going through this spasm, this racial justice spasm, because this woman has unresolved issues with her stepfather. And it's the same thing with Kaepernick. It's the same thing with a lot of these people. They have deep, deep identity issues, and they have not found a way to deal with them. And they're forcing all of us to be on the therapist couch with them. And we are thinking that they're fighting for race and justice, but they are just trying to work through these issues. And let me make an honest admission to the audience. I know exactly where Colin Kaepernick is coming from, right? When I was 18 years old, ready to go off to college, my dad, who's very conservative in terms of his dress, his appearance, his speech, wanted me to get a haircut. Now, like a lot of black boys in my age growing up in the 90s, I like to grow my hair out. And I grew it out every summer. But then when I went to school in the fall, I would get it cut. I would wear like a low Caesar or a low ball fade. So I'm going off to college. I didn't want to get it cut. I went to the barber. I said, take it off a little bit, keep most of the hair. My dad said, I don't like it. I don't want you to represent our family this way when you leave the house. And I got upset. And I said some things I shouldn't have said. And one of my best friend, he'll know this. And I may have extended my hand and said, this sounds like a socialistic type of perspective. And we had a big argument. Now, ultimately, I went back to the barber and I got my hair cut. Fast forward, I let it grow out because, again, I was young and rebellious. End of the school year comes. Not only did I have long hair, but I also added an earring, a fake cubic zirconia. I went down to Lazarus. I went downtown Pittsburgh, got me a little, on the proper side. And I come home, and my pops, he was done with me. And his thing was like, look, if you want to do all this stuff, you could pay for college on your own. And I got cut off financially. I had to get my hair cut, and then I left home. And for the next 4 years, me and my dad spoke on the phone one time. And I almost never came. I spent every single semester from the age of 18 to 22 in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And we had a rift, I'd say until I was about 23 years old. And I didn't understand it. And all my friends were like, just cut your hair, just cut your hair. And I was like, no, I'm not doing it. And eventually what happened is I cut it when I was ready. It put a strain on my parents' relationship. And I harbored some feelings towards him for a long time. But here's what happened, Jason. Eventually, when I left home again and I moved away and I was going to a church, and the pastor was talking about resolving issues with your parents or loved ones. And I wrote my dad a note, and I told him I appreciate him. And I understand that he always did what he thought was best for me. And I sent it home, and my mom said he read it, and he was grateful for it. And now me and my dad have a much, much better relationship. Sometimes we still disagree on stuff, but the thing is, I respect him and I honor him. And even in my telling of this story, I don't want to do anything to tarnish him, his perspective, or his reputation, because he's my father. And now I'm a father, and I would want my children to be respectful and obedient and to honor me, because eventually, Lord willing, they're going to have children. And I understand why God told the children of Israel to honor their mother and their father. Because if you hate the people who created you, who else won't you hate? And what I see Colin Kaepernick doing is working through some of these issues because he probably feels abandoned, which he was by his biological parents. And he never felt like he quite fit in, which he probably didn't given where he grew up. And he's pulling in these superficial notions of his ethnicity. Allen Iverson, cornrows, tattoos. That's what it means to be black. I'm surprised he didn't say he exclusively wore Jordans. But he is trying to find his identity. And to your point, and I love the way you said it, as a believer, I understand my first and foremost that my identity is in Christ. And the Bible talks about even if your mother and your father forsake you, God will never leave you. But the Marxist hates God. And he lifts himself up as an omnipotent and omnipresent force. And that's why we see Colin Kaepernick going through this identity spasm that he's going through right now. So I pray for the brother. I honestly do. I hope he will repent and turn from his ways, and he will come to find, his identity in Christ, because what he's doing right now, nobody will want to be around him. I certainly wouldn't. And I wouldn't want this type of person to be my friend.
I sit there and he's a father now, and I can't. He's going to raise this kid in such an inappropriate, ineffective way. If he's now in his 30s and still thinking his hairstyle is central to his identity, that tattoos central to his identity. You can't these aren't values to pass on to a kid that are going to take them anywhere. This is crazy. And people can't see it. And I see so many kids caught up in this. Delano, stick with me. I just want to take care of a slight bit of business. One, I want to tell you guys that are watching over YouTube, hit the likes, hit the comments. This show is worthy of 10,000 likes. We're not done yet. Get in the comments. If you're listening over Apple, give me the 5-star review, write a review about this conversation here, because it's so critical and so central. And then I also want you to think about what we're trying to do here with the Fearless Movement and what we're going to try to hammer on April 15th right here in Nashville. Men have to understand what being a man means. We're going to define manhood. We're going to give you advice on how to be a better asset in your community, be a better asset to your parents, to your kids, to your community, to what we're going to do that April 15th right here in Nashville. We need you to come join us. Go to Fearless Army rollcall.com. Delano will be speaking. I will be speaking. Pastor Anthony, Pastor Bobby, TJ Moe, all different angles. We're going to be coming at this, trying to give men the information they need to represent themselves in a proper way and to represent God in a proper way. This issue with Colin Kaepernick, it's not just limited to Colin Kaepernick. There are too many young people who think their hairstyle and a tattoo and using the N-word is a way to represent who you are. And this thing's not just specific to one race. Too many men, as we've talked about, the guy earlier this week when we played the video, the guy with 7 kids and 7 baby mamas, and he thinks he's not responsible for that. We got to get men back on point, back on code, back on biblical code. And we're going to be doing that process here April 15th in Nashville. I need you here. It's not that expensive. Nashville's a great time. Hotels are, a little bit, but it's worth it. Nashville's a good time. We want you to come here and join us. There's still opportunity and space for you to join us on Friday night for the cookout and on Saturday morning for the breakfast. And then we have all-day events planned for you Saturday at Rocketown. Delano, back to you. The woman, we didn't play the whole clip, but the woman interviewer framed all her questions up around blackness and how he wanted to take pride in his blackness and he wanted to show his blackness. And they're preaching racial idolatry specifically to black people. Specifically, racial idolatry. No other group that I'm aware of gets interviewed on TV or has pressure. Maybe I'm wrong. Do white kids have to live up to their whiteness? Do they have to find their whiteness? Do Asian kids have to find their yellowness? Do Latino kids have to? I think Latinos maybe a little bit they're under this pressure, but this seems so unique to us that we talk about it openly, that somehow finding your blackness is the most important priority. It's so secular. Does anybody else dealing with this?
I mean, I do think other groups can have identity issues, and particularly if you're a kid who is from a particular ethnic group but grows up outside of that, those issues can occur, and that's why sometimes they'll tell adoptive parents to try to do something to connect a person to their ethnic roots. I think, as is often the case when it comes to black folk, and particularly black Americans, not being able to point back to a land, a specific named land that you left voluntarily, right, that sort of roots you and grounds you, makes that search for identity a lot more difficult. Now, a person could say, a lot of black conservatives will say, well, I'm American, I'm black American, and there's enough there to cover and say that is his own identity, right? A black American is different than somebody who grew up in Ghana or Nigeria. It's not the same. Now, yeah, we may have a similar skin color, and we may in fact come from Ghana and Nigeria in terms of where our tribal origin, but telling somebody, I grew up, my parents listening to Otis Redding and the Spinners is not the same as saying, I grew up listening to, Fela Kuti or whoever. So those things are not the same. But I will say this, I think identity is important. It is good to have a feeling of being grounded and rooted. I just think that the identity that Kaepernick and a lot of black folk sort of try to tap into is shallow. It's all cosmetic. It's all about aesthetics. It's all about, again, did you wear Jordans? Do you have tats? Do you, and what's even worse than that is now that ethnic identity is being tied more so to a number of political positions. As Nicole Hannah-Jones said, we know that there's racially black and then there's politically black. And I think what you're seeing is this level of shallowness sort of oozing out of Colin Kaepernick's pores. He's LARPing, Jason. In his Netflix special, when he came out and he got on the full-length black leather, when he got the afro, and I said, Colin Kaepernick is no different than the white people who do Civil War reenactments, at Appomattox on the weekends. He's playing a role. He's putting on a costume. Now, those people are doing it sometimes for historical purposes, sometimes for entertainment purposes, but he's doing this because this is what he thinks that blackness is. He thinks he's Shaft. Now, the rest of us look at him and say, man, this guy, he's down bad because he's, nobody dresses like this. Samuel L. Jackson don't even dress like this. But for him, this is his way of trying to reconnect to those roots. And I wish he had something deeper that he could go on. But the other thing, again, going back to being a parent, one of the things that I've noticed, and I'm not a historian per se, but just observing, every revolutionary is revolutionary until they come into power. And then it's status quo all the way down the line. I've never heard a speech from Fidel Castro translated in English where he says, after being president of Cuba for 25 years, I welcome the revolution, right? I want to be challenged by, whoever to make Cuba a better country. He was a revolutionary up until the time he got into power. And then he said, look, I'm going to be president until the day that I die. And that's exactly the way it worked. Now, Colin Kaepernick is this, anti-authority person as a kid until he has his own children. And he's going to want his children to listen to him and to heed his guidance. And when they're 4 years old and they drink up enough of his revolutionary theory and they say, nah, Dad, your parenting approach is just another form of oppression. And really what it's doing is mimicking the systems of white supremacy that you fight against when you're out there in the streets. So I'm not going to listen to you because I don't respect power structures and authority figures in this home in the same way you don't respect them on your team or with corporations. So sorry, Dad, at 5 years old, I'm emancipated, I'm a rebel, I do what I want, now deal with it. He gonna turn to Nessa, and in their native Egyptian tongue, they're gonna say, man, what did we do with this kid? And then he's gonna realize where he went off the rails. And I hope that is a wake-up call for him to say, this is not the path.
I want to go back to your Black American identity. I think it's more than enough. I think it's superior to any of these faraway lands that Black people love to claim that they've never been to, have no intention of. And I'm gonna break it down this way. And again, because it's all in how you frame Black American history, what you believe the narrative is. But I think there are some essential facts. I guess Colin Kaepernick may think, you know what, I'm from Dahomey, Africa. I'm like, oh, okay. So you from them Black people that captured and sold Black people into slavery. I'd rather be from Buck Tussle, Mississippi, off a slave plantation where I know none of them Black people sell me into slavery. So my Black American history is superior to this faraway history and this group of people that captured you and sold you to the French and the other Europeans and sold you into slavery and had everybody from around the world docking their boats to come capture these Negroes that other Negroes had captured. I'd rather be Black American. It's more than enough. We participated in making this country the envy of the world. And so I just think we're telling the wrong history, and we're with movies like Wakanda or Black Panther, we're fantasizing about these faraway lands that sold us into slavery. They had so little respect for each other, that they captured and sold each other in slavery and enslaved each other. And that's where you want to be from? No, you don't, or you'd move there now. So it's all a gimmick. And Black American history trumps all of that. But we're too foolish, prideful, stupid to acknowledge what's obvious. That all that, because again, all the people from Dahomey, Africa, and wherever else they did the woman king, many of them would love to move here and send kids to get educated here. We ain't sending them to Dahomey. It's so Kaepernick and all of these young people, gratitude, God, and it's effed up how we got here, but it's a blessing. I'm just sorry. It's a blessing. We're a special group of people that God transported here for a specific reason and purpose. And we just keep rejecting that and keep, and literally those of us with any Christian faith, my God, if we weren't transported here, we wouldn't know about Jesus Christ. We wouldn't be Christians. We wouldn't, we'd be getting it now as mercenaries and missionaries and others travel to Africa to teach us about it. But I sure love getting taught about it over here in some air conditioning with some DoorDash just a fingertip away.
I mean, now obviously none of us can say how history would have unfolded, right? If the transatlantic slave trade was not a thing. But even as you described going back, into Africa, that's part of our history too. And I think one of the difficulties that human beings have is reckoning with difficult parts of our past. Now, to me, part of the way that you deal with that is to acknowledge that it happened, right? And then to understand that you are no better than the people back then. Because ultimately, and this is where a biblical worldview and foundation come in, because ultimately we all have the same common ancestor in Adam, and we all have the same problem of original sin. So you can't get away from it. So when I see people like Colin Kaepernick, I think and it's not just him. I saw a clip, with Henry Louis Gates the other day, where he was telling Angela Davis, the noted activist and communist and professor and Black Panther, whoever, that she was descended from people who came on the Mayflower. And boy, did that rock her world. But part of it, again, is this difficult in having an honest dealing with history. But the bigger problem is this, Jason. Any people that spend more time obsessing about the society that their ancestors inhabited than the one that their descendants will inherit is in big, big trouble. And in our community, 70% of our time is focused looking in the rearview mirror. But the problem is the car is perpetually moving forward. And it's rare to hear for me to hear anybody in the Black leadership class talk about what type of world, what type of society, what type of culture do we want to leave to our children? And to the extent that we do that, I saw a clip the other day on BET, and I'm gonna go back and watch the show. They were talking about, BET and Black, and this woman was talking about, well, if we get reparations, it may increase the marriage rates among Black folk. Now, I knew something had to be fishy because typically BET don't talk about marriage like that. So I said, okay, this is really about reparations. Now, I saw another clip of the woman. She says she's choosing to be single by choice. She's choosing to be single. She's very educated. I'm sure she's upwardly mobile. Given her grays, she looks like she's about mid-40s, early 50s. She's advocating a spinster lifestyle. And I'm saying to myself, okay, you're going to get reparations. Who's going to get the money? Now, we live in a community where our leaders advocate abortion, right? Where they tell us that it's good that 30% of Black babies are killed in the womb. and they're silent on homicide. The fact that 50% of young black males between 15 and 24 who pass away die by homicide. And they advocate for spinsterism. You could do bad all by yourself. You should choose peace over a partner. You don't need a man. You have your own money. Why bring somebody in? And I'm saying to myself, y'all so focus on generational wealth, but there's not going to be any generations. Not with this attitude. So these are people who spend all of their time talking about the ancestors, and they want everything from the ancestors other than the faith that got them through. They want to trade on the ancestors' pain. They want to trade on the ancestors' survival through slavery and Jim Crow. They want to trade on the ancestors' activism. You want to talk about identity issues. Try sending a middle-class black kid off to college and see how quickly they end up in the Black Student Union or the Communist Society, because all of our kids think that to truly be black, you have to fight against oppression and marginalization. So we know how to be losers very well, but we don't know how to win. This is a perpetual sort of Los Angeles Clippers spirit that's hovering over the black community. We know how to be underdogs, but we don't know how to be champions. And that's why these kids who go off, they have terrible identity crises. Jason, I don't know if you remember, a couple of years ago, University of Missouri, there was a big scandal about, some kids were saying the N-word, and they drew a swastika, and it was a big thing. Yes, I wasn't sure that detail, but yes, and it was a big thing, yeah. Oh, yeah. and sit-ins, and the black guy who was at the center of it, his father worked for a Fortune 500 company. He went to private schools his whole life. His dad probably made well over $500,000 a year. So he already feels alienated because he probably didn't grow up in a particularly black world. Maybe Jack and Jill, maybe that's about it. Maybe he saw the Obamas on Martha's Vineyard. So what does he do? He puts on the costume of Dr. King so he can say, I'm operating in this civil rights legacy. But this is what happens where your identity is rooted in marginalization and oppression. And when it is, somebody who's way smarter than you knows how to turn that on you and sell you self-destruction if they call it liberation. And that's why you have primarily college-educated black folk, especially women, who walk around saying, we need access to abortion to kill our seed because that is liberation. And the pro-life movement, which would disproportionately save black babies, that's rooted in white supremacy. That's the type of thinking that we have. And that's the type of thinking that you get when all you see yourself as is a victim.
There's a couple of interesting stories from that University of Missouri story. The other protagonist or central figure in that was the student body president, black kid, that he was a driving force behind that. He was gay, the student body president, and was named homecoming king. But he said his experience at Missouri was filled with racism and oppression. He's student body president, and he's the homecoming king.
Right.
But he's being mistreated because he said that he was driving or walking somewhere and some townie drove by and shouted the N-word at him. But he's gay, student body president, and homecoming king. And I guess his complaint was that he should have also been named homecoming queen as well. He wanted both titles. That was the oppression. I'm joking about that. But
it was a non-binary award.
That was, I was looking at this, I was like, hold on a minute, you student body president and you're homecoming king. You living the good life. I mean, whatever issues that the University of Missouri has, and I know someone drove by and yelled something crazy at you, but
allegedly,
that's not how the campus is treating you. But all of these kids, particularly the college educated, come from good families. because the only thing, and Kaepernick has found, he's got all of it. He got the hair, he got the tats, and then he made himself a victim of the NFL because those are the central qualifiers for blackhood, for blackness is for men. Do you got cornrows or dreads or some kind of funky hairstyle? How many tats you got? And then are you a victim? And now, if you can check all three of those boxes, you're golden. You throw a baby mama or two in there, and oh my God, I mean, you the creme de la creme.
Or the crip de la crip. Yep, I'm with you.
Delano, have a great weekend.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you for the conversation. Appreciate it. We're going to hear from Steve Kim here in a second to get his take on this as well. We'll lighten it up, and maybe I won't be as angry when Steve Kim is here. I want 10,000 likes, I'm not joking, on this show. We got to keep fighting this algorithm. If you're on Apple, I need 5-star reviews. I need you to write a little review of this particular show on Apple, but hit that 5-star, get in the comments, wherever you're at. 10,000 likes. Steve Kim next.
It's my obligation, no hate, discrimination, raising up your hands for freedom.
Atheists, the secular world, the culture uses our imperfection, our sins to shut up. You can't stand on truth. And if all it was imperfection, it eliminated us from standing on truth, this would be a very quiet place. I'm trying to be as loud as I can and as transparent as I can to try to inspire other men. We know you're imperfect. You know you're imperfect. God's grace and mercy gives you the right to stand on his truth and to speak that loudly into the culture, and we have to do that.
You can look around and say, these guys have taken over everything. They own the CDC, the NIH, they got the president. Is transgender surgery for children? Colleges today are nothing but leftist indoctrination centers working fully against the Bible. What's the alternative? So you're gonna stop fighting today and you're gonna let the government raise your kids? And you're gonna turn around and let them chop off your 12-year-old daughter's breasts and let them sterilize your son and tell him that he's a girl? And you're gonna let them make the Bible hate speech? You're the last line of defense here, because nobody else is gonna do it, and God's gonna walk with you. This is literally worth dying for. Absolutely. I'm telling you, so it's like everybody, that's a nice little metaphor. This is it. If there's a hill to die on, this is it.
The Overton window has been moved right in front of our children's bedrooms. And there are all types of people that are trying to climb up in the ladder. And every good father should be on his post so that when they peek their head up over the windowsill, you kick the ladder back down, let them know you move on to the other house, because we're not playing that around here.
Sometimes just standing up, just saying no, we're not going to do that. Not my marriage, not my kids, not my family, not my community, not my church, not my city. Just declaring that, that's victory enough. In prepping his disciples, he tells Peter, he's like, listen, Satan desires to sift you as wheat, but I've prayed for you. We're gonna face some ups and downs in life, and we're not gonna always get it together. But if we stay on the path, if we stay chasing after, running after Jesus, running after his way, he's even praying for us. Now, I like it when you pray for me, Jason and TJ. I appreciate that, but to have Jesus pray for me, that makes me feel pretty good. When you make it through this sifting process, go back and strengthen your brothers. So we all have a responsibility as men. Once he's delivered me through this, I have a responsibility to go back and bring some other folk out.
You do a roll call to just let people know you're not alone, be confident in your positions, and we're gonna inspire you. We're gonna eat, fellowship, listen to some music. It's gonna be the first of many roll calls that we do. So we're looking for soldiers. We're gonna put out our best recruiting pitches for soldiers.
모두 다 빨리 박수 쳐 기다리지 말고 서둘러 Reason that I'm back is to feed you raps I see that you are 배불러 So fly
All right, welcome back. Time for some Korean Cosell. We'll see if he can lighten me up here on Colin Kaepernick and the animus. I am angry today, I gotta admit. I cannot stand Colin Kaepernick. We'll see if Steve Kim, the Korean Cosell, can lighten my mood. Steve, I find Colin Kaepernick despicable. What he's doing to his parents here, it's everything I've thought about him ever since he started taking a knee. This guy doesn't care about anybody or anything. He has more concern about George Floyd than the people that sacrificed everything to raise him. He's taking a dump on them. He would never be critical. I wonder if he thinks anything George Floyd did was problematic. When George Floyd was robbing women, I wonder if that was problematic. When he was popping fentanyl and sucking down fentanyl, I wonder if he thought that was problematic. He would never say it, but he'd certainly take a dump on his adoptive parents. Your thoughts on Colin Kaepernick and his thoughts on his parents?
You know, it's interesting about this individual who has really monetized his activism, and he's gotten certain endorsement deals. And Jason, I'm sure you've seen this the last couple of months, those really big caps, those oversized lids. That should be, he should be the spokesperson. Big cap, Pernick. I mean, because he truly is an all-pro at grifting, and he's committing what I think is the worst sin of all, the sin of ingratitude on a serious note. And I just think it's interesting that as I'm looking at some of these pictures of him growing up with that adoptive family, the thing that really struck me, Jason, he actually looks very happy. Got a smile on his face, looks like the all-American kid growing up in a version of suburbia out there in that area. Looks very content, doesn't look like he's wanting really all too much. Probably got the Game Boy for Christmas, Nintendo when that went out of style. And this is how much he leaned into his whiteness. He actually played baseball. I mean, if you want to talk about being white in modern society and not leaning into your black side, in the 2000s, it's playing baseball. Because let's face it, Jason, the inner cities, they don't play baseball anymore. So that's the thing that I thought of. And even leading into the Super Bowl in New Orleans, the Harbaugh brothers were a big story. I happened to see a picture, and I guess the families were invited one day that with that same family, he was on the field at the Superdome before that game, happily smiling. That it wasn't an issue with them being involved or even being publicly displayed. So that's the thing, sin of ingratitude. That's what I think of when I think of that guy.
What if you had to speculate? What do you think his parents think? What? I mean, they are caught between a rock. They can't say anything.
Yeah.
Anything they say can and will be used against them in the court of public opinion.
Yeah, look, they are in a catch-22. They're between a rock and a hard place. Because if they say anything, you know, look, I'm surprised he didn't call them colonialists or conquerors or whatever the term is for this week, right? But I just find it interesting that Colin Kaepernick, you can argue, was a beneficiary of, well, white privilege. 2-parent home, 3 square meals, Little League dues were all paid for, got to go to summer camp, probably got to watch all the movies, probably had a nice VCR or a DVD player back then. I just find it amazing that he literally ran out of people to criminalize or extort, and now he turns on his parents. And I also think there's a point being made on Twitter, which I think is very, very cogent. Wearing cornrows and then invoking like Allen Iverson, that's his vision of blackness. That it's not having another haircut or just behaving well, but think about the negative stereotypes that he's invoking and saying, well, I wanted to reach into my blackness, as if somehow his vision of it is what he thinks it is. I'm just telling you, if it was anyone else saying it, especially a white person, they'd be asked one thing. Well, wait a minute. Why is that your vision of blackness?
Steve, did you ever, obviously not at your age now, what are you, 32?
I would.
Okay. But did you ever at any time think about, I gotta embrace my Asianness or yellow skin or whatever color skin, I don't know, olive, whatever. Was that ever a thought?
Yeah. Every time I got one of my mediocre report cards, I'd have to show to my parents. I did say to myself, gee, I better get better grades here. I want to have a pair of pissed off, crouching tiger parents. And quite frankly, it got very uncomfortable as I brought home too many B's and once in a while a C. But to us, this is the thing that's interesting about the assimilation of Asian Americans, because now they call us white adjacent, right? That's the new liberal term. We're just trying to live our lives in whatever our version of the American dream was, whether that's owning a liquor store or a dry cleaners or whatever small business we had. But it was never really forced upon us to look back to the motherland. Like there was never a time that even in my most rebellious time as a youth, I never thought about raising my fist or, having one chopstick up in the air and saying, I need to go back to the 38th parallel. Like it's not forced upon us. And there's not this victimology that is shoved down our throats. And again, I want to say we have to make it clear our history in this country. And look, I was an immigrant that came when I was a toddler in the 70s. So it's a little bit different. Everyone's immigrant experience is a little bit different, as is the American experience. But from a standpoint of the general large-scale media, Asian people were never really given the messaging of you are a victim, you are bound to fail, and there's a systemic rot that's going to victimize you. So we just kind of live as Americans. I mean, first and foremost, Jason, I make it very clear. I am not Korean. I am not going back to Seoul or Busan anytime soon. I'm going to live and die in this country. I actually love America. So when people say, hey, are you Korean? I say first and foremost, no. I'm an American Korean. I never say I'm a Korean American.
So should I call you the American Cosell rather than the Korean Cosell?
No.
We mistagged you?
No. There's no alliteration. There's no alliteration there. Come on. American. Yeah, we already had American Cosell. His name was Howard. So let's go with Korean Cosell.
Yeah. All right. So we're still good there. Hey, speaking of Asians, let's transition. Talk a little Tiger Woods. He's Copland Asian. Tiger Woods is back in the news and perhaps back in the gossip sheets. His latest girlfriend, Erica Newman, I believe is her name. She's 39 years old. He's having a little problems getting her out of the house. Sounds like she's claiming he tricked her. He tricked her into going on a vacation. When she came back, all of her stuff was cleaned out. She wants $30 million in a lawsuit. She signed some non-disclosure agreement. The only way to get out of the non-disclosure agreement is if in some way you can argue that you were sexually harassed or abused. And so she's got both guns pointed at Tiger Woods. And this story, Tiger's already had some problems, obviously, with his first wife and being involved in scandal. And that if you remember, his play fell apart after the Thanksgiving deal. He couldn't handle it mentally, being embarrassed. Everybody, Tiger Woods is my favorite athlete. It used to be Magic Johnson. Tiger surpassed him. Magic is now number 2. But as a kid growing up, I loved Magic Johnson. But Tiger Woods, at the height of his golf career, what it did for me and my dad and me and my dad's conversation. Tiger Woods is my guy. Love him to death. I have a bias. I am capable of talking about him objectively. I feel sorry for Tiger because I think it's, given his history and how he was dating, and given his wealth and all that, dating very rough for this guy. He needs these non-disclosure agreements because, the gossip rags and TMZ are always out to get him. Do you have sympathy for Tiger in this situation?
Kind of. 30 million? He's going to have to ask himself, is it cheaper to keep her? But God, this is the thing, though. What he did and the way he wanted to put her on waivers, it's kind of a D move. At least be a gentleman about it. And this is why he's always getting outed. Look, say what you want about Derek Jeter. He had an impressive Hall of Fame off the field lineup, and you never heard a thing. You know why? Because he was generally a very nice guy. He acted like a gentleman. Same thing with Magic. We know how Magic ended up in his position, but no one ever came out against him. You know why? Because generally, it seemed like he was very decent and nice. Tiger does not seem nice. When I actually heard back when that thing with his first wife and all that stuff happened Thanksgiving weekend, I mean, you're literally a billionaire and you're flying out your side pieces on Southwest. Come on. You could not, I mean, forget about getting first class. You could not just hook them up with a private jet and show them a little. And then he's like giving them for lunch, a going away lunch. Subway, really? See, this is where Tiger gets himself in trouble, that he is socially awkward. He really, I mean, you couldn't even get Quiznos, because Quiznos is pretty good. Now, here's the solution. I am not here to rip or castigate. I'm here to help. He needs to go back to a show you did about 5 weeks ago, and I think it's clear he can afford it. The Crouching Tiger Woods, he needs to become a passport, bro. That's it. That's the thing. You talked about it. You did a whole show on it. So if someone out there is close with Eldrick, I can send you a link. Send it over to Woods. He can go to Colombia, Medellin, wherever. Be careful. Be very respectful of the locals. And Tiger, don't act like yourself. Actually try to be a regular, nice human being, because I don't want you to get stabbed and 50 pieces sent back. But anyway, he needs to become a passport, bro. That's the solution. Forget the relationships. Just do you. But no, don't do you over there, Tiger. That's the thing.
I think what has gotten Tiger into trouble is what you alluded to. Tiger's cheap, and he may be too cheap to be a passport, bro, because you're right. I don't think if he had treated these women with respect and the generosity of a billionaire, I don't think they would have sold him out as quickly as they did. With Rachel Uchitel, I think at one time had been one of his best friends and had, basically been his liaison around Vegas or whatever. And I think I read somewhere where she needed $500 and Tiger wouldn't give it to her.
Yeah, and think about that, Jason.
That's like a $20 bill to Tiger.
That $500 probably cost him millions. I mean, like, let me give you an example. There's a monthly dinner that we have among some boxing friends, trainers, fighters, promoters, people in the sport at Field Trainees in Long Beach. By the way, big fans of yours up there. So anyway, and we know we're going to be regulars. So when it comes time to tip, and I know I need to come back, we're not just giving. I make sure everyone's giving an extra $10 to $20 per head. Because you know why? Because quite frankly, I want to know what's in my next meal. I want to be treated well. And that's the downfall of Tiger Woods. You said it. He's cheap.
In this particular case, though, this woman's looking for $30 million. $30 million she's suing for. They were boyfriend and girlfriend for 5 or 6 years. Does being boyfriend and girlfriend really require a $30 million settlement? I mean, does it require a $10 million settlement?
Well,
$5 million?
Jason,
I can see, you need first and last month's rent at your new apartment. Here's, $2,400 or $3,000. I got your first and last month's rent. But millions? I don't know, man.
Yeah, Jason, the rumor is that she's being represented by Lamar Jackson's mother. But look, you know what they say in negotiating? Aim high, and come down to a more reasonable price. That's what I think is going on here.
Well, and it's funny, you mentioned Lamar Jackson's mother, but what Tiger really needs to be careful of, who's sniffing around this deal, is Gloria Allred. And once Gloria Allred gets involved,
oh my God,
I know she's old, but...
The female Ben Crump. Yeah. Oh, boy. Oh, God. Tiger.
Yeah.
Tiger, break out the
Brandy
passport,
Crump. Yeah, Brandy Crump gets involved, and the next thing you know, that $30 million is going to turn into $100 million, or Tiger, all these cell phone videos and all this other stuff's going to come out. And so, on a more serious note, though, honestly, if she's been living with you and she's been living your lifestyle and so she's grown accustomed to that. She was very involved with his kids and all that. There is some sort of like, okay, I need you out of here. And I'm sure they've been having that debate. And she's just like, oh, okay, but what am I gonna do, Tiger? I put my life on hold for you, your kids. Okay. Not that she had much of a career. I think she was a restaurant manager or something like that for Tiger Woods. But who knows? Maybe she was making $100K managing one of his restaurants. Maybe she's making $150K. Who knows? Give her $300K, Tiger.
Well, Jason, this is a legal issue. I don't even know if that alone constitutes anything like a common law marriage, but it harkens back to the great scene in Waiting to Exhale when Angela Bassett's husband, who was a doctor, said, hey, I'm leaving you for a Becky Beckington. And Miss Bassett just gets the car, all his clothes, all his ties, all his shoes, and she just burns it up, right? And I'm thinking right now, okay, you know what? Maybe that guy got off cheap. But again, this is where Tiger, if he just would have acted like a regular human being and say, look, honey, it's not you, it's me. And then write a nice little check, a little going away present, I think he'd be fine. But again, Tiger didn't go crazy. Tiger went Tiger. Famous words from Chris Rock.
I'm sitting here thinking about stuff that could blow up in my face. I'm thinking about, I got a buddy out in Vegas named Ron. I wonder if he's watching or listening to this, because I can remember being in Vegas. And I'm living in LA at the time.
Oh boy.
And this woman's living with me, and she's gone off the rails. And,
oh boy.
And she's making some threats. And I'm telling you, it was like midnight in Vegas. And I was like, dude, I gotta go. I gotta pack her stuff up out of here and I gotta beat her back to LA. We leave LA immediately, driving like a bat out of hell. And by, I'd say 6 o'clock that morning, all of her stuff was packed up in her car in my parking garage. I'd had the locks changed, the whole night. I'm sure Ron's gonna see this.
That sounds like an R. Kelly video. It really does. Oh my God.
This was a long time ago. And this is why I left LA. And this is why I've gotten closer to God. Because trust me, I needed it. I want to switch up another topic. Patrick Ewing got let go at Georgetown. He got 6 years.
I know.
He got 6 years, and it was probably after year 2 or 3. Let me go check his record at Georgetown. But this was long overdue. Yeah, 75 and 109, I think, is his career record. But this is long overdue, Patrick getting canned. And remember, Patrick Ewing, you know who Patrick Ewing was? Oh, this is awesome. He was the Eric Bieniemy of the NBA.
Oh,
everybody was irate that Patrick Ewing couldn't get an NBA head coaching job. And he went and further destroyed Georgetown basketball. But Patrick went 15 and 15, 19 and 14, 15 and 17, 13 and 13, 6 and 25, 7 and 25, and now he's done at Georgetown. Your thoughts?
In the immortal words of Boney T, this is worse than when the Fat Boys broke up. As someone who wanted this to work, who loved Georgetown hoops in the 80s, I wanted it to work. But it goes to show you that the Georgetown brand is no longer what it was. And look, 80% of that job is talent acquisition. And if you cannot recruit or get that one player, it's going to be difficult. And look, he probably did get another year or two based on his lineage. But it really makes me sad what has happened to, number one, the Big East and overall Georgetown. I mean, the conference tournaments are going on today as we speak, Jason. I won't be watching a single millisecond of it. And it just harkened back a couple things. From about 1984 till about 1996 when Ray Allen and, Allen Iverson put on a great duel. I thought the Big East tournament was as good as any sports tournament in America. at the Madison Square Garden. Now it's just kind of like a shell of itself. As for Georgetown, it's really sad that I don't think they'll ever replicate that success that they had with John Thompson. And look, I'm not even talking about going to 3 Final Fours in a 4-year stretch and winning it once. It's just really sad. And I don't know who they get. I mean, there's actually talk from someone, and I don't know how serious it is. And you know what? I would throw away his baggage. I'd say I don't even care, because if we want to be a winning organization, I would roll the dice on Rick Pitino. Seriously, Rick Pitino. You don't like that idea?
That's an interesting.
You got to get you're kind of
interesting.
Desperate. Yeah.
Are they saying that that's even a possibility?
I saw some tweet where they said these are the names being mentioned / rumored. And you need to make a splash. You need a big name. And look, you could say what you want about Pitino. I get it. But the man knows how to win. He's one of the elite coaches that's ever been in college basketball. And I believe Georgetown has to get away from the Georgetown tree, right? Because if you really think about it, it went from Thompson to Craig Esherick, who was a longtime assistant. Then it was John Thompson the third. And then at Ewing. It kind of reminds me of Alabama football when they went through a 20-year malaise post-Bear Bryant, where everyone had to have played for Bear Bryant, right? If you didn't come from that Alabama Crimson Tide Bear Bryant tree, they didn't want to hire you. Well, Nick Saban's worked out pretty well. So if Georgetown wants to get back to relevance, they need a guy like Pitino, in my view.
I think that would be a great hire. Steve, we're going to end the show on a curveball and a sad note. I just saw this news. Otis Taylor,
Yes.
Chiefs wide receiver, legendary Chiefs wide receiver, star of their first Super Bowl team, Lenny Dawson's go-to wide receiver, has passed away. I was friends with Otis Taylor during my time in Kansas City. The reason I'm bringing this up, because it's long overdue, and I don't want to. Otis had been bedridden for more than a decade, and it was uncomfortable, his continued existence, basically as a vegetable. And so I'm thankful that he's at peace with God and home. Otis people treated me wonderfully when I moved to Kansas City in 1994. My mother moved there in 1984, and she had met him, but I didn't know Otis Taylor until I had moved there until 1994. One of the first people to befriend me. We used to have breakfast at Miss Maxine's. Great guy, great football player. In my view, worthy of the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
They never got him in the Hall of Fame, but certainly worthy. He was a finalist in the seniors deal, didn't make it through this past year. But Len Dawson and Otis Taylor basically dying in the same time frame. Seems kind of appropriate, but I'm mostly happy that Otis has been allowed to pass. You have any? I know we're both too young to have seen him play, but you have any memories of Otis?
Yeah, I mean, certainly through NFL films and being a little bit of a historian with Otis Taylor, long before there was the Megatron Calvin Johnson, there was him and Harold Carmichael, these big-bodied, freakishly tall, long athletes. And there's that famous Super Bowl catch where he caught the hitch and he broke a tackle. It went like 50 yards, and that ended the game, basically. And for years, I thought Mr. Taylor was in the Hall of Fame based on the impact that he made. And I believe he worked for the Chiefs organization for years to come. And look, at the end of the day, when situations like this, I am reminded of my own father's passing back in 2016, that the last time I saw my father, the last 4 years of his life were very difficult after he had a stroke. And I remember the last couple of times that I saw him, I actually said to myself, for his own sake, I hope he can die peacefully and relatively soon, because it became very tough to actually see him in that state. And the last time I visited him, I remember walking out of that convalescent hospital thinking to myself, I've just seen my father for the last time. Something I'll never forget, I actually got the message past midnight on a Tuesday night after I'd come back from covering a fight, saying that my father had passed away. And it's something that you never forget. And Otis Taylor, to me, will represent a generation of players through NFL films that I grew up loving and developing my passion for football because of the great contributions he made on the field.
Steve, have a great weekend. We'll talk to you next week. Let's play tomorrow, and we'll see you next week.
Waiting for the countdown, coming off the breakdown, standing in line for freedom. Looking for a breakout, feeling like a standoff, nothing in life like freedom. Came like a fighter, striking like a ladder, making all these moves for freedom. I want freedom. No negotiation, my sister, no relation. We all just wanna have freedom. Sitting on a corner, never been alone. I'm breaking my back for freedom. Blessed, we are living, get back. We are receiving, all deceiving. We all wanna be free. We want freedom.